The palace halls of Varelia were silent until the echo of heavy boots broke the calm. Human boots. Captain Daniel Reeve was led forward by two tall guards, whose silver armor glinted under the crystal lights. He had not expected to be here. He had not even expected to survive the battlefield outside the city walls. Yet now he was being taken to the throne room of the alien queen herself. On the high dais sat Queen Lurith, her silver hair falling like a river over her golden armor. Her eyes were cold as the moon. At her right side stood her daughter, Princess Arya, radiant with violet skin and hair white as snow, braided in delicate threads. Daniel had seen many strange beings during the war, but none as striking as her. She was staring at him, not with hatred, but with something else entirely. Something dangerous. "Mother," Arya said softly, her voice carrying through the hall. "This is the one." The queen frowned, her gaze snapping to her daughter. "The one for what?" she demanded. Arya's chin lifted, her eyes not leaving. "Daniel's, the one I choose as my mate." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Even the guards stiffened. Daniel's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He did not fully understand the customs here, but from the look on the queen's face, this was not a small declaration. Queen Lurith rose to her feet. "No, sweetie, you cannot choose him as your mate," she said, her voice like steel. "He is human. He is the enemy." Her words were sharp enough to cut, but Arya did not flinch. Instead, she took a step closer to Daniel, her eyes bright with defiance. "I will not change my choice," she replied. "Even if the whole galaxy stands against me." Daniel realized he was holding his breath. This was more than a personal matter. This was a challenge to her mother's authority in front of the entire court. Daniel had been captured only hours ago. The battle outside had been fierce, with human and Varelian forces clashing in the dust and fire. He had been separated from his squad, cornered, and knocked unconscious. When he woke, he expected chains and interrogation. Instead, he had been brought here. Now he was part of something far more dangerous than a war. He was caught in the middle of a royal dispute that could decide his fate. The queen's voice rose. "Do you know what you are saying, Arya? Do you understand what this will cause? The council will see this as betrayal. The soldiers will see this as treason." Arya's reply was calm, but every word was firm. "I understand. I also know what I saw on the battlefield. He fought not for conquest, but to protect his own. He is not like the others." Her words sent a strange ripple through Daniel. No enemy had ever spoken about him like that before. The queen turned her glare to Daniel. "Speak, human. Do you accept what she claims?" Daniel swallowed hard. Every instinct told him to stay silent, but something in Arya's eyes held him. "I did what I had to do to keep my people alive," he said. "If that offends you, I can't change it. But I never harmed anyone who wasn't a threat to me." His voice did not tremble. The queen studied him like a hawk watching prey. The silence that followed was heavier than the stone walls around them. Arya moved to stand between Daniel and her mother. "You may see him as an enemy," she said, "but I see him as something the Varelians have never had. A chance to end this war before it destroys us both." Her hand hovered just close enough to Daniel's arm that he could feel the warmth of her skin. It was a silent declaration, one that made the queen's jaw tighten. The court watched, breathless, as mother and daughter stared at each other, locked in a battle without weapons. The queen finally sat back down, her golden cape spilling over the throne. "You will regret this choice, Arya," she said. "And when you do, I will not shield you from the consequences." The princess bowed her head slightly, but her expression did not soften. "Then I will bear them." Daniel realized in that moment that whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The war was still raging outside the palace walls, but inside, another war had just begun. Daniel was escorted from the throne room by two guards, whose expressions gave away nothing. The corridor was long, lined with towering statues of past rulers, their eyes carved to look down in judgment. Arya followed closely behind, ignoring the whispers of the courtiers. Every step Daniel took echoed against the marble, as if the palace itself wanted to remind him he was far from home. They entered a smaller chamber, richly decorated with woven banners and crystal lamps. The guards stopped at the door, leaving Daniel and Arya alone. She turned to face him, her eyes scanning him in a way that felt less like curiosity and more like calculation. "Do you know what your presence here means?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "I'm guessing it's not good." Her lips curved slightly, though it was not quite a smile. "It means you are now part of something that could shatter my people's traditions." Her voice held no trace of fear. Daniel leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. "I didn't ask for any of this. I was just trying to survive out there." Arya stepped closer, the glow from the crystals highlighting the pale shimmer of her hair. "I know. I saw you save one of my soldiers from the firestorm. You could have let him die, but you didn't." Daniel frowned. He wasn't a threat anymore. Killing him would have been pointless. Arya studied him with an intensity that made him uneasy. "That's why I chose you," she said quietly. The sound of boots in the hallway broke the moment. A tall figure entered, wearing ceremonial armor with black enamel trim. It was General Koresh, commander of the Queen's forces. His eyes narrowed at Daniel. "So this is the human who has caused such disruption," he said. Arya did not flinch. "He is the one I have chosen," she replied. Koresh's jaw tightened. "You risk much, Princess. The Council will not stand for this." His gaze moved to Daniel. "And you, human, should pray they don't decide to remove you before nightfall." The warning was sharp, and it lingered in the air. After the general left, Daniel exhaled slowly. "Seems like I'm not very popular around here." Arya's tone was matter-of-fact. "You are not. But popularity is not my goal." She began to pace, her golden armor catching the light. "My mother believes strength means never bending. But I believe true strength is in choosing differently." Daniel tilted his head. "And you think choosing me will prove that?" Arya stopped pacing and met his gaze. "Yes, but you must understand, if you stay, you will be tested." Her words were more a promise than a warning. Daniel thought of his unit, of the war raging outside. Staying here might mean abandoning them. But leaving could mean never learning why this princess was willing to risk everything for him. "If I stay," he said slowly, "what happens next?" Arya's eyes softened just slightly. "The Council will meet. They will question you. They will try to find a reason to declare you unworthy." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "You must give them none." Daniel gave a small nod. "I've been through worse." Whether he believed that or not, he kept it to himself. Later, as Daniel was led to temporary quarters, he caught glimpses of the palace's grandeur, arched windows showing the city skyline, spires stretching into the pale green sky, and courtyards where alien birds with shimmering wings circled above. The beauty of it all was in sharp contrast to the tension hanging over him. The guards left him inside a chamber with a high bed and a balcony. Before leaving, one guard spoke for the first time. "Do not leave this room without permission." His tone carried no emotion, but the meaning was clear. Daniel stepped onto the balcony, feeling the warm breeze carry scents of distant flowers and burning fuel from the battlefields. Somewhere out there, his people were still fighting. He gripped the railing, torn between loyalty to his comrades and the strange pull of the princess's determination. He had never been anyone's choice before, certainly not in a place like this. He wondered if he should feel honored or doomed. As night fell, the city lights flickered like stars beneath him. In the distance, faint flashes marked the edges of ongoing battles. Daniel knew tomorrow would bring questions from the council, and each answer could seal his fate. He turned back toward the room, the shadow stretching long across the polished floor. Whatever this was turning into, it was far from over. Morning came with the sound of distant drums. Daniel woke to find the palace guards already waiting outside his chamber. One of them, a tall woman with pale green skin, stepped forward. "The council is ready for you," she said. Her voice carried no warmth. Daniel followed them through winding corridors, his boots echoing on the polished floors. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were aware of what was about to happen. They entered a circular chamber with high pillars and a skylight that let in a shaft of golden light. Around the perimeter sat the council members, each dressed in robes of deep blue and gold. Their faces were marked with lines of authority and age. At the center stood Queen Lurith, her gaze fixed on Daniel, as though she could strip away every secret he carried. Arya was there too, standing tall beside her mother, her chin lifted in silent defiance. The queen spoke first. "This is the human my daughter has chosen as her mate. I bring him before you so that you may see him for yourselves and decide if he is worthy of such a bond." A murmur passed among the council. One elder leaned forward. "Human, state your name and your purpose." Here, Daniel met his eyes. "Captain Daniel Reeve, my purpose here is survival. The princess chose me, not the other way around." His words drew a few raised brows from the council. Another elder, his skin patterned like stone, asked, "Why should we believe you are different from the rest of your kind, who bring war and destruction wherever they go?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because I didn't come here to conquer. I fought to protect my people. If that makes me your enemy, then I accept that. But I will not apologize for defending my own." His tone was firm but controlled. Arya's eyes softened at his answer, though the queen's expression did not change. The council whispered among themselves before another question came. "Would you lay down your weapon if it meant peace between our worlds?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Yes, if it meant my people would be safe. But peace works both ways. You would have to do the same." His words hung in the air, sharp as any blade. A few council members exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear he was not someone who would bow easily. Queen Lurith turned to her daughter. "You see, he is stubborn. He will not yield." Arya's reply came without hesitation. "Strength is not yielding to those who would harm you. That is why he belongs here. That is why I chose him." Her voice was steady, her conviction unshaken. The queen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing more. The council chamber felt like a battlefield where no one dared make the first move. An elder finally spoke for them all. "We will observe him for 3 cycles. If during that time he proves himself honorable and useful to our people, we will not oppose your choice. But if he fails, he will be sent back to his kind dead or alive." The decision was delivered with the cold weight of law. Daniel gave a single nod. "Then I'll prove myself." His voice carried no doubt. Arya looked at him with something close to pride. The meeting ended, and the guards led Daniel out into the sunlight. The city was alive with motion market stalls spilling with goods, children running between fountains, and soldiers moving in disciplined lines. For a moment, Daniel almost forgot the danger he was in. Arya walked beside him, her steps matching his. 3 cycles, she said. "It will not be easy." Daniel glanced at her. "I didn't expect it to be." Her faint smile told him she respected that answer. As they reached the palace gardens, Arya stopped near a tree with silver leaves that shimmered in the wind. "If you wish to survive this trial, you must learn our ways," she said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And you're going to teach me?" She stepped closer, her violet skin glowing in the dappled light. "I will. But not everyone will want you to succeed. Some will try to make you fail. You must be ready for that." Her warning felt less like fear and more like strategy. Daniel looked out over the gardens. the distant mountains painted in soft gold by the sun. He could feel the weight of the trial ahead pressing on his shoulders. Yet he also felt the strange pull of the princess beside him. For reasons he could not explain, he wanted to see this through, not just for himself, but for her. Whatever came next, he knew it would change everything. The first cycle of Daniel's trial began before sunrise. Arya met him in the training courtyard, where the stone floor was marked with white circles for combat drills. Around them, Varelian soldiers stretched and prepared their weapons. Arya wore lighter armor today, designed for speed rather than ceremony. She handed him a wooden practice staff. "Your trial will not just be about words," she said. "It will be about skill, discipline, and how you face danger." Daniel took the staff, feeling its weight. "I'm not here to impress anyone," he said. Arya's gaze sharpened. "You will have to, if you want to live." She gestured to a soldier across the courtyard. "This is Captain Soren. He will be your first opponent." Soren was tall, with pale blue skin and a scar that cut across his cheek. He twirled his own staff with practiced ease. "Let us see if the human bleeds easily," Soren said, his voice flat. The duel began with a sharp clang as their staffs met. Daniel blocked the first blow but staggered under the second. Soren pressed forward, his movements fast and calculated. Daniel stepped back, scanning for an opening. Arya watched silently, her expression unreadable. Daniel knew she was studying how he reacted under pressure. He ducked a strike and countered with a sweep at Soren's legs, forcing him to step back. A small ripple of surprise passed through the watching soldiers. Soren's grin was thin. "Not bad, human." He came at Daniel again, harder this time. The staff cracked against Daniel's shoulder, sending pain shooting down his arm. Daniel gritted his teeth and pushed forward, using his weight to drive Soren back. The fight ended when Daniel twisted the staff from Soren's grip and pointed it at his chest. The courtyard went silent for a heartbeat before the soldiers gave short, respectful nods. Arya's lips curved ever so slightly. After the match, Arya walked beside him. "You learn quickly," she said. Daniel shook his head. "I've been fighting to survive for a long time." They passed through the courtyard gate into the palace gardens, where the morning sun painted the silver-leaf trees in soft light. "Your next test will not be against an opponent," Arya said. "It will be against the council's expectations." Daniel frowned. "And how do I fight something I can't hit?" Her answer was simple. "By proving you belong here." Later that day, Daniel was summoned to the council hall. The elders were seated in a half-circle, each holding a carved staff of authority. One elder, with golden markings across his forehead, spoke first. "Human, you will assist our engineers in repairing the lower city shield grid. Failure will count against you." Daniel nodded once. "Where do I start?" The elder's eyes narrowed. "You start by proving you are not here to sabotage." U.S. The tension in the air was thick. Daniel was escorted to the lower city by 2 guards. The streets were crowded with merchants, children, and workers moving between tall crystal buildings. At the edge of the city wall, a group of Varelian engineers waited beside a massive array of glowing panels. One of them, a young woman with short silver hair, looked him over. "You know how to handle power conduits?" she asked. Daniel knelt beside the panel, examining the layout. "Not like this, but I can figure it out." She hesitated, then handed him a set of insulated tools. The work was slow and required focus. The conduits pulsed with energy that made the air hum. Daniel traced the faulty line and began replacing burned-out segments. Sweat ran down his neck as the heat from the equipment intensified. Several engineers exchanged skeptical looks, but he ignored them. Hours passed before the final segment was replaced. The shield grid flared to life, sending a shimmer across the sky above the city. A few of the engineers murmured in surprise at how quickly the repair was completed. One guard stepped forward. the council will hear of this." His tone was neither approving nor disapproving. Daniel wiped his hands and stood. "Good, let them." As they made their way back to the palace, Arya was waiting at the gate. She looked past him at the functioning shield, and then back into his eyes. "You are making it harder for them to find a reason to cast you out." Daniel's answer was quiet. "That's the idea." That night, Daniel stood again on his balcony. The city lights glimmered beneath him, and the faint hum of the restored shield filled the air. Somewhere inside the palace, the queen was no doubt hearing reports of his actions. He wondered whether she saw him as a threat or as a pawn in her daughter's defiance. Either way, he knew the trial was far from over. The second cycle of Daniel's trial began with an unexpected summons. A palace guard knocked on his chamber door before sunrise, ordering him to follow. The corridors were dim and quiet, lit only by the glow of wall crystals. He was led to the Queen's private audience room, a place he had never been before. Queen Lurith sat alone at a round table, her armor replaced by a flowing robe of deep crimson. Her eyes followed him as he entered, sharp and unwavering. She gestured for him to sit. "You are making progress with the council," she said. "Some of them now see you as more than just a human soldier. That could be dangerous for both of us." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "I'm only doing what I can to pass your test." The Queen's voice dropped lower. "It is not just a test. It is a measure of whether you can survive in this court, where loyalty is bought and broken daily." Her words felt like both a warning and a challenge. Before he could respond, the doors opened and Arya entered. Her gaze moved from her mother to Daniel, reading the tension between them. "If you are here to frighten him away, you are wasting your time," she said. Queen Lurith's lips curved faintly. "I am here to see whether he understands the storm he has stepped into." Arya took a seat beside Daniel, close enough for her shoulder to almost touch his. "He understands enough," she said. Daniel stayed silent, knowing the conversation was less about him and more about their struggle for control. The Queen rose from her seat. "Today you will join Arya on a diplomatic visit to the outlying districts. You will see what kind of world she wants to bring you into, and you will see why I believe you cannot survive it." Her tone was final. Arya stood as well. "Then we will show you you're wrong." The Queen's expression remained unreadable as she left the chamber. Daniel knew this was not going to be a simple journey. They departed the palace in a long convoy of armored transports, escorted by soldiers on hoverbikes. The city gave way to open plains, dotted with wind towers and clusters of small settlements. Daniel sat across from Arya, inside the lead vehicle. "What's so important about these districts?" he asked. She met his gaze. "They are the heart of our supply lines. Without them, the city would starve. But they also hold people who have no loyalty to the crown." Her voice hinted at the challenge ahead. When they arrived at the first settlement, the reception was far from warm. The villagers, their clothes patched and worn, gathered to watch the convoy with guarded eyes. An elder stepped forward, his face lined by years of labor. "We did not ask for visitors," he said. Arya dismounted and bowed her head respectfully. "We come to hear your needs and your grievances." The elder's gaze shifted to Daniel. "And why bring a human here? Is he a guard or a spy?" Daniel's reply was calm. "I'm here because the princess asked me to be." The tension in the air was thick, but Arya moved through the crowd, speaking to individuals, listening carefully to their concerns. Daniel followed, offering quiet assistance when she needed. He helped repair a broken water pump with the tools provided by the villagers, earning a few nods of approval. It was clear the people trusted actions more than promises. By the time they left, the mood had shifted from suspicion to cautious acceptance. Their next stop was a mining outpost at the base of a rocky ridge. The moment they arrived, it was clear something was wrong. Smoke rose from one of the storage buildings, and miners rushed to contain a spreading fire. Arya jumped down from the transport and ordered her guards to assist. Daniel didn't wait for instructions. He ran to the nearest bucket line, passing water to those closest to the flames. His uniform was soon streaked with soot, but the fire began to shrink under their combined effort. When the last of the flames died, the foreman approached Arya. "We owe you," he said, then looked at Daniel. And him. The gratitude was genuine. Arya's eyes met Daniel's briefly, and a small, proud smile crossed her face. "This is why I chose you," she said quietly. He didn't answer, but the warmth in her tone stayed with him as they began the trip back to the city. That evening, as they returned to the palace, Daniel felt the weight of the day's events. He had seen the struggles of the people Arya wanted to protect, and he had felt their skepticism turn into respect. But he also knew the Queen would see this as another step toward defiance. The trial was changing more than his standing with the council. It was changing how he saw her world. The third cycle began with tension thick in the air. Word had spread through the palace that Daniel's presence in the outlying districts had gained him unexpected support. Some soldiers spoke of his actions with respect, while others muttered that he was a dangerous influence. When he stepped into the training hall that morning, every eye followed him. Arya stood waiting in the center, her arms crossed and her gaze steady. "You've made them talk," she said as he approached. Daniel gave a half smile. "I'm not sure if that's good or bad." She shook her head. "It's both. The council will not like that you're winning the people. They will try harder to see you fail." She handed him a practice sword. "That is why you need to be ready for anything." Her tone left no room for argument. They sparred for nearly an hour, their weapons ringing through the hall. Daniel's arms burned with effort, but he refused to slow down. Arya moved with fluid precision, forcing him to think on his feet. When the match ended in a draw, she gave a small nod. "You're improving," she said. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. "So are you," he replied. She allowed herself a faint smile before stepping back. Before they could speak further, a messenger entered, bowing quickly. "The council requests the human's presence immediately," he said. Daniel exchanged a glance with Arya before following the messenger. The council chamber was filled, but the atmosphere was colder than before. The eldest member, with golden lines marking his face, spoke first. "Your actions have stirred unrest. Some call you a hero. Others call you a threat. We must decide which you are." Daniel stood in the center of the chamber, meeting their eyes one by one. "If helping your people makes me a threat, then maybe the problem isn't me," he said. A murmur ran through the elders. One of them leaned forward. "You speak boldly for someone on trial." Daniel's tone remained calm. "Boldness isn't a crime. You asked me to prove myself, and that's what I'm doing." His words cut through the air like a blade. The council leader's voice deepened. "There's one final test before the third cycle ends. A supply convoy headed to the southern front has gone missing. You will join the search party. If you find it and bring it back intact, we will acknowledge your value. Fail, and your trial ends." Daniel gave a single nod. "When do we leave?" The elder's answer was simple. Now, Daniel and Arya departed the palace with a squad of soldiers, riding in armored transports across the plains. The wind carried the scent of rain, and dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Arya leaned toward him. "Convoys don't just vanish. If we find them, expect trouble." Daniel checked his gear, his grip tightening on his weapon. "I'm ready," he said. She gave him a brief, approving glance before focusing ahead. They found the convoy's tracks leading into a narrow canyon. The walls rose high on either side, shadows pooling at the bottom. The lead transport halted, and the squad moved in cautiously. Daniel scanned the rocks above, his instincts prickling. A sudden cry echoed from the far end, followed by the hiss of energy bolts. "Ambush!" Raiders poured from the cliffs, their weapons blazing. The soldiers returned fire, and Daniel moved to shield a fallen driver, dragging him behind cover. Arya fought near the center, her golden armor flashing in the light of the blasts. Daniel covered her flank, striking down 2 attackers who tried to circle around. The fight was chaotic, but the squad held their ground. When the last of the raiders fell or fled, the canyon was silent again except for the hum of the damaged transports. Arya stepped to Daniel's side. "You saved more than one life today," she said quietly. They repaired what they could and led the convoy back toward the city. By the time they returned, the rain had begun to fall, washing away the dust of the battle. The council was waiting in the courtyard. The eldest member studied Daniel before speaking. "The convoy returns, and with fewer losses than expected. For now, you have proven yourself." Daniel felt the weight of the words, but knew his trial was not truly over. Arya stood beside him, her presence steady, and he understood that the hardest part was still to come. The 4th cycle began with a sense of unease. Daniel could feel it in the way the guards glanced at him as he passed, and in the quiet way the servants avoided his eyes. Arya noticed it too. When they met in the garden that morning, she spoke. Without her usual calm, "The council is split. Half believe you are a danger. Half believe you are the answer we need." Her voice carried a weight that told him the stakes were higher than ever. Daniel folded his arms. "And which side does your mother fall on?" Arya looked toward the palace towers. "She will not say it, but I know she fears you. She fears what you represent. Change." Her gaze returned to his. "If she decides you are a threat to her rule, she will not wait for the trial to end." The truth in her tone was sharp enough to cut. Before Daniel could answer, a palace guard approached. "The queen summons you both to the war chamber," he said. They followed him through stone halls lined with ancient banners until they reached a wide room dominated by a massive table showing a map of the southern territories. Queen Lurith stood at the head, her generals flanking her. She did not waste time on greetings. "We have intercepted intelligence that the enemy plans to strike the capital directly," she said. The room fell silent. One general spoke up. "If this is true, they will use the river channels to bypass our outer defenses." Another added, "We must reinforce the gates at once." The queen's eyes moved to Daniel. "You have seen how our enemies fight. How would you stop them?" He studied the map, tracing the river routes with his finger. "You have a bottleneck here," he said. "If you set a trap here and here, you can stop them before they reach the city." The queen listened without interrupting. When he finished, she spoke again. "You would lead this defense?" Daniel met her gaze. "If you let me." A flicker of something unreadable passed through her eyes before she turned to the generals. "Prepare the forces. If he fails, it will prove my point." Arya stepped forward. "If he succeeds, it will prove mine." The queen did not reply, but her silence spoke volumes. The next day, Daniel was on the riverbank with 2 squads of soldiers. Arya was at his side, her armor polished and ready for battle. The air was cool, the water moving slowly past them. "You're sure this will work?" she asked. Daniel checked the placement of the charges they had hidden under the shallow water. "It will slow them down long enough for us to push them back," he said. She nodded, trusting his judgment without question. The attack came at dawn. Enemy craft moved swiftly down the river, their black hulls cutting through the water. At Daniel's signal, the charges detonated, sending waves crashing into the nearest boats. Soldiers on the banks unleashed a hail of fire, striking the enemy before they could recover. Daniel fought alongside the Varelians, his rifle steady, his movements precise. Arya was a blur of motion, cutting down any who reached the shore. The fighting was fierce, but the trap worked. The enemy retreated, leaving the river choked with wreckage. Cheers erupted from the Varelian soldiers, and Daniel lowered his weapon. his breath steady despite the battle's intensity. Arya approached him, her eyes bright. "You just saved the capital," she said. Daniel gave a small nod. "We saved it." Her smile in that moment was more than victory, it was a promise. When they returned to the palace, the council was already gathered. Reports of the victory had reached them before Daniel stepped into the chamber. One elder rose to speak. "The human has done what even our own commanders could not. He has earned his place here." The words were met with murmurs of agreement, but also with a few cold stares from those still unconvinced. Queen Lurith stood, her robe flowing around her. "Your actions have bought you time," she said to Daniel. "But know this, the trial ends soon, and one final decision will be made. If you think today's battle has secured your place, you are mistaken. The greatest challenge is yet to come." Daniel held her gaze, knowing she meant every word. The end of his trial was approaching, and whatever awaited him next would decide everything. The day of the final decision arrived with the weight of a storm. Daniel woke to the sound of drums echoing through the palace. Outside his balcony, the city was already gathered in the central square, waiting for the council's verdict. He dressed quickly, the polished armor given to him by Arya fitting like it had been made for him. When the guards came to escort him, their expressions gave nothing away. The council chamber was more crowded than Daniel had ever seen it. Not just elders but soldiers, nobles and citizens had gathered to witness what would happen. Queen Lurith sat at the center, her crown gleaming in the morning light. Arya stood to her right, her posture straight and her eyes locked on Daniel. The queen raised her hand, and the room fell silent. For 3 cycles, this human has been tested. Queen began. "He has fought beside our soldiers, aided our people, and defended our city. But the question remains, does he belong among us? And more importantly, at my daughter's side?" Her words hung heavy in the air, and all eyes turned toward the council. The eldest elder rose to speak. "We have seen his courage. We have seen his skill. Some say he has earned his place. Others say his presence will bring danger to our traditions." He looked directly at Daniel. "You have one chance to speak before we decide." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "I never came here to take anything from you. I came here as a soldier trying to survive. But I will not deny that. I have fought for more than myself since then. I fought for those who stood beside me, Valyrian or human, because it was the right thing to do." A murmur swept through the chamber, but Arya's voice cut through it. "You asked for proof. He has given it. You asked for loyalty. He has shown it. If you deny him now, it will not be because he failed, it will be because you fear change." Her words made even some of the doubting council members shift uncomfortably. The queen's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. The elders conferred quietly, their discussion lasting several tense minutes. Finally, the eldest elder turned to face the queen. "The council is divided. The decision falls to you." The room went utterly still. Queen Lurith rose from her seat, her gaze moving slowly from Arya to Daniel. "You have challenged my expectations," she said to him. "You have done what I did not believe possible. You earned the respect of those who swore they would never trust a human. But trust is not the same as acceptance." She looked at her daughter. "If you choose him, Arya, you will face the consequences. You will stand against those who see this as betrayal. And I will not protect you." Arya's answer came without hesitation. "Then I choose him." Gasps filled the chamber. The queen's jaw tightened, but she did not speak for several long moments. At last she turned back to Daniel. "Then, you are no longer a prisoner here. But your safety will depend on your strength, and your strength will be tested every day you remain." She stepped back, signaling the end of the trial. The crowd erupted into mixed shouts, some in approval, others in outrage. Daniel felt Arya's hand slip into his, her grip firm and unshaken. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. She met his gaze. I have never been more sure of anything. The noise of the chamber faded for him in that moment. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, that evening. As the sun set over the silver-leaf trees, Daniel stood with Arya on the palace balcony. The city below glowed in the fading light, and the hum of the shield grid was a reminder of all they had fought for. He had come to this world as a captive, certain he would never see freedom again. Now he stood beside the princess who had risked everything to keep him here, knowing their future would not be easy, but it would be theirs.